Ex-husband shames black woman at the reunion until her billionaire husband walks. Before we dive into the story, please hit the subscribe button. Also, drop a comment and let us know which city you're watching from. We love hearing where our community is tuning in from. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. She's fooling everyone with her black empowerment charade. Marcus Kane's voice snarled through the sleek Manhattan penthouse, his fingers crumpling a Forbes magazine as he glared at Victoria. Her platinum blonde hair caught the city's neon glow as the cover blazed with Serenity Washington's face. Eyes fierce under the headline, Redefining Leadership, Global Impact Through Innovation. Marcus tossed the magazine onto a glass table, its thud echoing like a challenge. She's playing the charity card, Victoria, but I'll burn her down at Ridgemont. 3,000 miles away, in a San Francisco office pulsing with ambition, Serenity Washington leaned over a desk cluttered with reports and coffee mugs. Her team's cheers still rang from securing a $500 million deal with an international foundation. Rise Together, her nonprofit, had just guaranteed funding to train another 1 million women of color for global leadership roles. Screens around her flared with metrics: 1.5 million women empowered, $3 billion in education investments. Her emerald blazer, tailored sharply, mirrored the gown she'd wear to Ridgemont, a silent vow to stand unbowed. Yet as her assistant slid a cream-colored envelope across the desk, Ridgemont Academy's gold-embossed seal glinting like a taunt, her breath caught. The past flickered, unbidden. Years ago, Marcus's voice had cut deeper than any blade. Education for women? Wall Street doesn't care about your dreams, Serenity. He'd sneered in their shared apartment, his cufflinks glinting as he adjusted his tie. Victoria gets it. Power is money, not ideals. Serenity had been a double major at Ridgemont, sociology and global studies. Her passion for equity was dismissed as cute by Marcus's Wall Street crowd. His indifference had eroded her spirit, each critique of her bold ideas, her natural curls, her unapologetic blackness stoking a quiet fire she hadn't yet learned to wield. Their divorce was civil, a cold agreement. But his final words lingered. You'll fade, Serenity. You're not built for the real world. Now that world was hers. Rise Together wasn't just a nonprofit. It was a revolution, its programs reshaping boardrooms from Lagos to London. Yet the envelope burned in her hands, its weight heavier than paper. Ridgemont was Marcus's kingdom, a place where her voice had once been drowned by whispers of too much or not enough. Her fingers traced the seal, memories flooding back. Classrooms where professors praised her intellect but mispronounced her name. Galas where Marcus's friends offered backhanded compliments like, "You're so articulate for someone from your background." The fire in her chest flared, not with rage but with resolve. She didn't need to go. Her life was full. Board meetings, speeches, women whose lives she'd transformed. But the invitation wasn't just a call to a reunion. It was a gauntlet, a dare to face the world that had tried to dim her light. Serenity's phone buzzed. Damon Cross's face lit up the screen. Her husband, a billionaire investor whose quiet power moved markets, was her anchor. "You've seen the Forbes piece," his voice rumbled through the video call, warm but edged with pride. "You're not just right, Serenity. You're rewriting the rules." Damon wasn't like Marcus. Where Marcus craved the spotlight, Damon wielded influence. Like a shadow. His wealth a tool, not a trophy. He'd funded Rise Together's early days, not out of pity but belief, sitting in on her strategy sessions, listening to her vision of equity with a stillness that made her feel seen. "Ridgemont's not ready for you," he said now, his dark eyes steady. "But go show them the future you're building." Serenity's lips curved, a spark igniting. She didn't want revenge. Revenge was too small. She wanted reclamation, to walk into Ridgemont not as Marcus's ex-wife, but as Serenity Washington, the woman whose work commanded billions and changed lives. Across Manhattan, Marcus's smirk faded as Victoria sipped her wine, her eyes narrowing. "She'll show up, Marcus," Victoria said, her voice smooth but sharp. "And she'll act like she's above us." Marcus's jaw tightened. Serenity's Forbes cover had shaken him, its glow exposing cracks in his carefully curated empire. He'd built his life on deals and dominance, but her success, her audacity to thrive without him, gnawed at him. "She's nothing," he muttered, but his fingers betrayed him, clenching the magazine's edge. "I'll make sure everyone at Ridgemont knows it." Serenity stood in her office, the skyline view framing her like a portrait of power. She slid the invitation into her bag, her mind already racing to the gown she'd wear, a creation by a Ghanaian designer, bold and unapologetic. She wasn't returning to Ridgemont to beg for a seat at their table. She was coming to build her own, one that would eclipse theirs. The fire Marcus had tried to snuff out years ago was now ablaze, and she'd let it burn bright enough to blind them all. "I'm not going to Ridgemont to grovel, Damon. I'm going to torch their stage." Serenity's voice crackled with defiance as she faced Damon across her San Francisco office. The city's skyline, a mosaic of steel and ambition, stretched behind her. Her emerald blazer, sharp as a blade, framed her like a warrior queen, her sleek black hair a banner of unapologetic strength. Damon, his dark eyes glinting with quiet pride, leaned against her desk, his tailored suit a study in understated power. "Then let's make sure they feel the heat," he said, his low rumble a spark to her fire. The cream-colored Ridgemont invitation lay between them, no longer a taunt, but a fuse, ready to ignite. Serenity had decided she wouldn't walk into Ridgemont's gilded hall to beg for acceptance from Marcus Kane's elitist crowd or prove her worth to the man who'd once dismissed her dreams as cute. She was going to reclaim her space, to stand as the architect of a global movement. Rise Together wasn't just her nonprofit. It was a revolution empowering women of color to lead in boardrooms and parliaments, its impact measured in lives transformed and billions invested. But Ridgemont was a battlefield, a place where her passion for equity had been mocked as too idealistic by professors and peers alike. Marcus's voice echoed from years past. "You're wasting your brilliance on lost causes, Serenity." She'd let him dim her then, softening her edges to fit his world. Never again. Damon's hand grazed hers, grounding her. "You've already outgrown them," he said, his voice steady but fierce. "But they don't know it yet." Together, they'd crafted a plan, not just to attend, but to dominate. A $100 million donation to Ridgemont's leadership program, tied to strict conditions, curricula-focused, on diversity, equity, and global impact modeled on Rise Together's framework. It wasn't charity. It was a takeover, a way to etch Serenity's vision into the institution that once tried to erase her. An email from a nervous board member had arrived that morning. "Miss Washington, your guidance is reshaping our program." Damon smirked, reading it over her shoulder. They're sweating already. She strides in like she owns Ridgemont's soul. Victoria's whisper, sharp as a shard of ice, cut through the hum of Ridgemont's grand hall. Her words dripped with venom as she leaned into Marcus Kane. Serenity Washington stepped through the arched doors, her royal blue gown woven with Ghanaian gold threads, flaring like a flame in the chandelier's glow. Her sleek black hair, a defiant crown, caught every light, and her presence was a silent detonation, commanding the room without a word. The crowd of elites, tuxedos crisp, gowns shimmering, paused mid-sip, some smirking at the audacity of the woman they once overlooked, others shifting uneasily, sensing a shift in the air. Serenity's eyes, twin embers of resolve, swept the hall, undaunted by the weight of their stares. Marcus stood near the bar, his tailored suit a veneer of control, but his jaw tightened as whispers rippled. Isn't that Serenity Washington, the Rise Together woman? Her nonprofit's name was on every philanthropist's lips, its mission to empower women of color in global leadership, a force reshaping power structures. Yet to Marcus's Wall Street allies, she was still the dreamer who didn't belong. A former classmate, his tie loosened by bourbon, snorted. Running a charity must pay peanuts, right? Serenity's lips curved, not in defense, but in quiet disdain. Her silence louder than his jab. She moved forward, heels clicking like sparks on marble, each step a challenge to the world that had once tried to dim her. A board member, graying and flustered, intercepted her near a velvet-draped table. "Ms. Washington," he stammered, his bow tie askew, "your involvement with our leadership program is transformative." His deference, a nod to the $100 million donation Serenity and Damon had engineered, hung in the air like smoke, unnoticed by most, but heavy with meaning. Serenity nodded, her gaze steady, knowing the board's gratitude was less about admiration and more about survival. They'd agreed to her terms, diversity-focused curricula, equity mandates, because her influence left them no choice. She wasn't here to thank them. She was here to claim what was hers. Still chasing your little black women's education fantasy, Serenity? Rise together, or should I say rise backward? Marcus Kane's voice sliced through Ridgemont's grand hall like a polished blade of mockery, aimed directly at Serenity Washington. He stood with his champagne flute raised, his tailored suit gleaming under the chandelier's fire, surrounded by a knot of Wall Street allies whose smirks mirrored his own. The crowd hushed, their eyes sharp with anticipation, locked on Serenity. Her royal blue gown was a defiant flame against the hall's opulence. Victoria, her silver dress catching light like a predator's glint, leaned into Marcus, her whisper venomous. "Show her she's nothing here." Marcus's smile was a weapon honed by years of boardroom victories, but beneath it a flicker of doubt betrayed him. Serenity's presence, unyielding and radiant, was a spark he couldn't extinguish. Serenity stood near the floral-draped stage, her sleek black hair a crown of defiance, her gaze a molten arrow that pierced Marcus's bravado. The room's pulse stuttered, split between those who laughed with Marcus, old Ridgemont elites, their privilege a shield, and those who shifted uneasily, sensing a storm. A young alum, her kente cloth dress vibrant, clutched her glass, whispering to a friend. She's Serenity Washington, the Rise Together leader. Serenity's nonprofit, a global force empowering women of color in leadership, was no mere charity. It had shifted paradigms, channeling billions into education programs that reshaped power from Ghana to Germany. Yet Marcus's crowd saw only a dreamer out of place. Marcus stepped closer, his voice louder, dripping with condescension. "This hall isn't for your little charity stunts, Serenity," he said, the words echoing like a gavel. "Stick to your fundraisers. Leave power to those who know it." The insult landed like a match in dry grass, igniting snickers from his allies. Victoria's laugh, sharp and crystalline, cut through the air, her eyes glinting with triumph. She'd urged this moment, her whispers in Marcus's ear a catalyst. Make her small again. To them, Serenity's work, her mission to lift women like her, was a quaint hobby, irrelevant in their world of mergers and money. The crowd leaned in, some relishing the spectacle. Others, younger, bolder, frowning, their faith in Serenity's vision a quiet rebellion. Serenity's smile didn't waver, but it sharpened, a blade of her own. She stood taller, her gown catching, the light like a beacon. Her silence a firestorm held in check. Every eye felt the weight of her presence. A woman who'd once dimmed herself for Marcus's approval, now blazing with purpose. "You're wrong, Marcus," she said, her voice low but lethal, cutting through the laughter like a spark through smoke. The room gasped, the air electric with her defiance. Marcus's smirk faltered, his flute trembling in his hand. He'd expected her to shrink, to flee, as she had in their marriage's quiet battles. But Serenity's eyes held no trace of that woman. They burned, unapologetic, as if she saw through his polished cruelty to the insecurity beneath. The oak doors of Ridgemont's grand hall crashed open with a sound like thunder, and Damon Cross strode through, his navy suit cutting through the chandelier's glow like a blade of midnight. Behind him, a massive screen descended from the ceiling, its bold white text searing the stunned crowd. Rise together. 1.5 million women empowered. $3 billion education impact. The elites, tuxedos stiff, gowns shimmering, gaped, their champagne, flutes frozen mid-air. Some of the younger alums erupted in applause. Others, Marcus Kane's Wall Street cronies, exchanged uneasy glances, their smirks from moments ago dissolving like ash. Marcus stood rooted, his face paling, the flute in his hand trembling as Damon's presence, a billionaire titan whose wealth dwarfed their fortunes, shifted the room's gravity. Serenity's eyes, twin flames of triumph, met Damon's, a silent vow passing between them. He strode toward her, his steps deliberate, each one a spark igniting the hall's tension. "Your work's been endorsed by the United Nations," he said, loud enough for all to hear, his voice a low, resonant fire. "You're not just leading, Serenity, you're rewriting history." The words landed like a torch in dry grass, burning away Marcus's venomous taunt. "Rise backward," that had echoed minutes before. Serenity's smile, sharp and unyielding, was a blade of its own, slicing through the remnants of his scorn. She stepped forward, her voice clear and cutting. "My charity stunts just changed the game, Marcus." The crowd gasped, a wave of shock rippling through silk and satin, her words a direct answer to his insult. Marcus's jaw clenched, his eyes darting as if seeking an escape. Victoria, her silver gown now a dull sheen, gripped his arm, her face, a mask of forced composure. She'd urged him to crush Serenity, whispering venom to stoke his pride. But now the room tilted against them. A young alum, her kente cloth dress vibrant, shouted, "Her programs transformed my company." Others joined, their cheers a rising flame, while Marcus's allies shifted, their laughter replaced by murmurs of doubt. The board member who'd fawned over Serenity earlier now stood at the stage's edge, his tie askew, voice trembling as he seized the microphone. "Ridgemont is honored to announce a $100 million donation establishing the Serenity Washington Institute for Leadership and Equity, funded by Mr. Damon Cross." The hall erupted, gasps, applause, and whispers colliding like sparks in a storm. The screen flashed again, detailing Rise Together's impact, empowering women of color in global leadership, reshaping corporations and governments across 6 continents. Serenity stood center stage, her presence a beacon, not a plea for approval. She'd forced Ridgemont's hand, her donation tied to demands for diversity curricula, a legacy that would outlast the hall's marble columns. Damon stood beside her, not as a savior, but as an amplifier, his hand grazing hers, a quiet signal. "Yuri?" Fire burns brightest. The crowd's applause swelled, but it was uneven. Some clapped out of awe, others out of obligation, their world upended by a woman they'd underestimated. Marcus's flute slipped, champagne splashing his cuff. His eyes, once sharp with condescension, were hollow, his empire of charm crumbling. He'd mocked Serenity's mission, called it a fantasy, but now her name was carved into Ridgemont's future. Victoria's smile froze, her fingers digging into his arm, her own ambition tarnished by his misstep. "You didn't know!" she hissed, her voice barely audible, a betrayal cloaked in silk. Marcus opened his mouth, a retort forming, But it died as another alum called out, "Serenity's work is on every global stage." The words stung, each one a reminder of his blindness. Serenity didn't gloat. Her gaze swept the room, steady and searing, a fire that needed no fuel. She'd come not to fight Marcus, but to claim her truth, a truth now undeniable, projected in bold letters above her. The board member, sweating, continued, "The Institute will champion Ms. Washington's vision, equity, leadership, change." The younger crowd roared, their phones already capturing the moment. One alum typed furiously, "Serenity Washington just owned Ridgemont." "Black excellence." Marcus's allies turned away, their whispers now of damage control, their power slipping, like smoke through their fingers. Damon's presence, a quiet titan beside Serenity, was a verdict. He didn't need to speak again. His entrance, his wealth, his belief in her had shifted the hall's axis. "You picked the wrong side, Victoria." A donor's curt dismissal sliced through Ridgemont's fading applause, his eyes cold as he brushed past Victoria. Her silver gown, now tarnished in the chandelier's flicker, seemed to dim as Serenity Washington stood center stage, her royal blue dress a smoldering ember. The screen still blazed with Rise Together's metrics. 1.5 million women empowered, $3 billion education impact. The crowd's cheers lingered, but the air was thick with new tension. Marcus Kane's empire of charm was crumbling, and Victoria's calculated poise was cracking beside him. Marcus's face, once sharp with condescension, was a mask of ash, his champagne. Flute forgotten, its contents staining the marble floor. Serenity's gaze met his for a fleeting moment, not with triumph, but with a verdict. "You're irrelevant." The hall buzzed, a hive of whispers and shifting allegiances. Marcus's Wall Street allies, who'd laughed at his taunt, rise backward moments before, now averted their eyes, their smirks replaced by nervous glances. A young alum, her kente cloth, dress vibrant, clutched her phone, her post already gaining traction. "Serenity Washington just owned Ridgemont Black excellence." The words spread like wildfire, each retweet a spark, igniting Marcus's humiliation beyond the hall's gilded walls. Donors who'd once courted his deals drifted toward Serenity, their handshakes eager, their voices low with awe. "Ms. Washington, your institute will change everything." She nodded, her silence a fire that needed no fuel, her presence a beacon that outshone their flattery. Victoria's fingers dug into Marcus's arm, her smile a brittle facade. "Fix this," she hissed, her voice a desperate ember beneath her polished exterior. She'd urged him to crush Serenity, whispering venom to stoke his pride. But now her own ambition was singed by his misstep. "I turned their stage to ashes, Damon." Serenity Washington's voice, fierce and unbroken, cut through the hum of the car as she leaned back, her royal blue gown catching the city's neon pulse through tinted windows. Damon Cross, his navy suit still sharp as a blade, gripped her hand, his dark eyes glinting with pride that burned hotter than Ridgemont's chandeliers. "You didn't just win, Serenity," he said, his low rumble a spark to her fire. "You redefined their world. Their silhouettes, framed against San Francisco's starlit skyline, were a portrait of unyielding power, a testament to the inferno they'd ignited. The hall's gilded walls, Marcus Kane's shattered pride, and Victoria's crumbling ambition lay behind them, reduced to embers in the wake of Serenity's triumph. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, the screen alight with notifications. The post from the young alum, "Serenity Washington just owned Ridgemont Black excellence," had exploded. Millions of views poured in, retweets spreading like wildfire across continents. Comments flooded. "She shut down Wall Street arrogance, and her institute's changing the game." The hashtag trended globally, a digital blaze that carried Serenity's name from the hall to the world. She scrolled, her lips curving as she read a message from a young woman in Nairobi. Your work gave me courage to lead. Serenity's heart flared, not with pride, but purpose. This wasn't about Marcus's defeat. It was about the women she'd lifted, the future she'd forged. Back in the hall, Marcus stood alone, a shadow amid the fading clatter of champagne flutes. His tailored suit, once a badge of dominance, hung heavy, stained with the champagne he'd spilled in his shock. The screen's metrics, 1.5 million women empowered, $3 billion education impact, still burned in his mind, a relentless reminder of Serenity's power. His allies had scattered, their handshakes withdrawn, their whispers now of his misstep. He mocked her. She's untouchable. Victoria had slipped away, her silver gown a ghost in the crowd, her final words to him a hiss. You dragged us both down. 6 months later, Serenity stood before the Serenity Washington Institute for Leadership and Equity, its sleek halls alive with the hum of ambition. The Ridgemont campus, once a gilded cage of exclusion, now pulsed with purpose, its walls lined with screens flashing, Rise Together's updated metrics. 2 million women empowered, $4 billion education impact. Her emerald dress, a nod to the gown, that had blazed at the reunion, shimmered under the Institute's skylights. Her sleek black hair, a crown of unwavering resolve, caught every light as she addressed the global leaders, students, and educators who hung on her words. Leadership means lifting all, she declared, her voice ringing clear, and I'm here to ensure it. The audience, a sea of diverse faces, applauded with genuine fervor. This wasn't the polite clapping of Ridgemont's elite. This was the thunderous approval of those who'd found their voices through her work. A young woman approached after the speech, her braids vibrant against her blazer, eyes gleaming with fire. Miss Washington, she said, her voice trembling but fierce, you showed me I don't have to shrink. I'm leading a startup now because of your programs. Serenity's smile, warm yet unyielding, was a spark passed forward. Keep burning bright, she said, her words a vow that echoed through the hall. Damon stood at the crowd's edge, his navy suit a quiet contrast to the room's energy, his pride a steady ember. He'd never sought the spotlight, his billionaire status a tool to amplify Serenity's fire, not overshadow it. Their partnership, forged in shared purpose, had turned Ridgemont's elitism into a platform for change. Across the world, the hashtag from that reunion night still burned, alive with millions of voices. Messages poured in, a teacher in Lagos inspired. To start a leadership program, a student in Chicago applying to the Institute, a CEO in Berlin citing Serenity's work in her keynote. Each was a spark kindling a movement that Marcus's world could never contain. In Manhattan, Marcus sat in his dim penthouse, the city's skyline a cold mockery through his windows. His phone was silent, his once buzzing network reduced to whispers of his blunder. The Post had branded him a relic, his name a cautionary tale beside Serenity's rising star. Donors who'd once flocked to him now funded her institute, their emails praising equity and vision, words he'd mocked as naive. Victoria was gone, her social media silent, her ambition severed by his failure. He poured a whiskey, its burn hollow compared to the inferno Serenity had unleashed. He'd thought he could bury her, but she'd built a legacy that buried him, its flames outlasting his faded empire. Serenity walked the Institute's halls, her heels clicking like sparks on marble. Portraits of women she'd mentored lined the walls, leaders, educators, change-makers, each a testament to her revolution. She paused at a screen displaying the new metric, 2 million women empowered. Her work wasn't numbers. It was lives, stories, futures. The young woman's words echoed in her mind. I don't have to shrink. Serenity had once folded herself to fit Marcus's world, her dreams dimmed by his scorn. Now she stood unbowed, her fire a beacon for those who'd been told to fade. As she stepped into the hall's light, her silhouette was a flame, unquenchable, undeniable, a fire that would burn for generations. The reunion that had begun with Marcus's scorn had ended with her triumph, but the true victory wasn't in his defeat. It was in the countless women who would rise because she had refused to fall. The fire had spread, and it would never be extinguished.